Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the 3-Day Workweeks podcast for millennial entrepreneurs. I'm Kate, and I'm excited to talk about today the weird self-care that actually grows your business. And this is a very buzzy buzzword topic right now, self-care, and it can look like a lot of different things. And you guys have probably seen me talk about this on social media and through my programs. If you're in my programs, this is a big topic because it is something that about 4 years ago turned everything on its head for me in business. And I want to talk to you about some weird self-care things that I do that actually work to make me a better person and grow my business at the same time. To give you a little bit of background, I have always been a pretty anxious kid. I was very I didn't really know how to handle things when they didn't go my way from a young age. I grew up as an only child, and my parents really treated me like an adult from a really young age. So I was used to my opinions being heard and considered in adult life. And as I started to go through high school and into college, I had a lot of anxiety. And I know that this can look different for everyone, but for me, a lot of it was about achieving and my people's perception of me, making sure that I was always as perfect as I could be, as organized as I could be, all those things. And I'll talk in a second about how I ended up using that stuff for good, but it was really tough. I ended up having like panic attacks. I remember in college, my senior year, sitting in the hallway between classes during finals, and I got a migraine so bad that I couldn't talk. I could barely walk. I ended up in the hospital, and that was really scary. I didn't know how to handle it. I had been in therapy on and off just since my parents got divorced when I was younger, and then to help manage my anxiety, I started seeing a therapist in college, but it just was a lot to manage. And the voices in my head were so loud, and I just didn't know. It's hard talking about this right now, even to think about where I was mentally, but I really just didn't know how to handle that, how to have a good grip on it, how to rein it in so that I could still be a participating member of society and not be freaking out that I wasn't perfect all the time. So fast forward several years I was about 2 years into my business, and I ended up meeting my now coach and at this conference. And the reason that I was drawn to him and how he could help me was because on the surface, he helps people get rid of their bad money stories. And that was something that I could see at this conference in particular. There were people who were making $20, $30, $40, $70,000 a month. And I thought, I have no way of getting there, and I don't know what I'm even doing in this room. That's another story. But anyway, that was his kind of shtick, but it was all based in science, particularly in quantum physics. And so we decide that it would be good for us to work together, and we start the process. And the first thing, which was so wild to me, that he had me do was an abundance of self-care. So much self-care that I think in American society, people say, oh yeah, get your nails done, get your hair done, self-care, get a massage, whatever. But not consistently feeding yourself to make sure that you are full and at your highest and best self in the most alignment with who your true self is, and that you're not masking things with substances or bad habits or destructive behaviors. And at the time, I was on Lexapro, and I really had wanted to get off of it. I had gotten off of it a couple years prior, but things just, as a business owner, like super stressful, and I didn't really know how else to cope with all the stress and anxiety. But I knew that long term, I definitely didn't want to have to be on any kind of medication to just make it through the day. So my first order of business was tons of self-care. And it was so counterintuitive, because it's like, you think I've got to do everything that I, quote, have to do first, and then I can take care of myself. Then whatever time I have left over is when I can make sure that I have my laundry folded and I meditate and I journal and all these different things. But this was really flipping it on its head and saying, nope, those things have to happen first. The things that fill your cup, and this is different for every person, which is why it's cool. They have this really neat technology that helps you. It's like a scientifically based version of human design, which is really cool. We'll do another episode with Wei where we talk more specifics about that. So everybody's different. What I'm going to tell you in this episode is based on my unique makeup of what my drivers are and what fills my cup. So don't apply this 100% to yourself, because everyone's different. But my first order of business is do all this self-care and do it first. That is the first thing that happens in a day. That is like the majority of where your time should be spent. And as a newish business owner, you're like, oh my God, how can I afford to spend any more time on myself? I should be putting everything into the business. I should be just pouring every ounce of effort and energy into the business that I possibly can. But the reality was, I was exhausted. I was stressed. I had so much anxiety. I was not a whole person, in that I couldn't bring a lot to the table. I was trying to go down the highway on flat tires, and it just was so difficult. So these are some of the self-care things that I started to do and still do every day that end up growing my business. So again, first thing is taking care of yourself. So for me, that looks like in the mornings, meditating and journaling. And meditating, I find that doing meditations that you can, if you are just starting to meditate, do whatever you find, whatever resonates with you. But as far from a scientific perspective, it does matter what the frequency of the meditation is, because that interacts with your brain waves and your nervous system. So I'm going to link, I really like Kelly Holloway's Letting Go. She has on Spotify an album that you can listen to, and it's got a 5-minute, 10-minute, and 15-minute version of the meditation, which is cool. The way that it's set up is that it's an album and there's tracks, but you can just save that, and I have it saved as pinned in my Spotify so that I can easily go to that and listen to it no matter what time it is. But so meditating, journaling, and this was something that I hated doing. It was so hard. It was so hard. But the voices in my head were so loud. There was just so much chatter and so many versions of me fighting with other versions of me about what we should and shouldn't be doing, what we should be focusing on, where we should be spending our time, yada. That journaling and getting it out of your head, there's the kinesthetics of actually writing things out on paper help get those thoughts and that chatter out of your head, and you can release it so that it's taken care of. We'll talk on another episode about why I write everything down, but this is just journaling and there are no rules. So just writing whatever is on my mind. Sometimes it comes out like free-flowing thoughts. Sometimes it looks like to-do lists. Sometimes it looks like brain dumps. But it's super important that every day that I journal so that I get all that spinning thoughts out of my head. And I really love, there's these journals that have, I'll link them for you. They're really cool. Just like really nice paper, and they stack really nice and they look really clean. And I like something that's simple, but some people like a happy stickery looking journal, but I found these are really easy to travel with and they look really clean and nice. Then probably the weirdest thing is salt baths, and not an Epsom salt bath. When I first started, and especially when I'm traveling or I'm interacting with a lot of people, or I've had a particularly tough day or week, I do multiple salt baths a day. But the purpose behind these salt baths, they're with table salt, not with Epsom salt. The salt clears your energy field and it gives you this amazing reset. It's so interesting. I was never a bath person at all before this, but doing these baths where you have to be in for a minimum of 10 minutes, maximum of 15 minutes, but just sitting in the tub with this salt and just no podcast, no music, nothing like that. It is amazing how much better you feel. Your heart rate lowers. You just feel like everything kind of dissipates. Nothing is as strong and as stressful as it used to be. So that's probably like the weirdest thing. And you use about 4 cups. So I order bulk salt. If you are lucky enough to live, Costco doesn't always have it, but if you're lucky enough to live somewhere that has bulk food supply that you have access to, you can buy it there. But I buy 25-pound bags of salt on Amazon, and now they deliver in 2 days because I order it so often and their algorithm knows. That's how I keep up with that. That's probably the weirdest self-care thing that I don't really tell many people that I do, but my whole theme, I want to be more transparent with y'all and what works for me. So overall, the biggest thing is making sure that my drivers are fed. So my drivers are aesthetic sensibility, making things beautiful, and creating order, surprise, surprise, professional organizer, loving systems and all that kind of stuff. So that is my first order of business, is to make those 2 things go hand in hand for me. This is where I'm saying it's a lot different. We'll have Way on and he'll talk more about the ULT assessment and what that looks like for different people. But where that, for me, making things look pretty and organized is like the first step of my day. If my bed's not made and my clothes aren't folded and my bathroom's a mess because I did my hair and left my stuff on the countertop, it's still mentally there. It's still mentally clutter for me, and I can't operate that well. But when I have those things done, or at least make a good dent in them, or do a couple of those things before I start my day, it is amazing the difference it makes. It's amazing how much more clarity I have, how much kinder I am, because I'm not hungry, angry, lonely, tired. That's another big thing for me. I have to make sure that I actually eat something. I'm bad about being on the go and just grabbing whatever. And then I'm hungry and I'm angsty and I don't do good work. I'm not as sharp and I can't show up for my team or my family or myself. So those are the weird things that I do. That what was so crazy was when I started to do more of that, the business started to do better and better. Things in business and relationships started to get easier and easier. The more self-care that I did, it was like, I'm not saying this stuff is easy, because it's not. It's a challenge, especially if you travel. Like, how do you get salt? Like, we went to Chicago a couple weeks ago and I Instacarted salt to the hotel so that I could have my salt baths, because it's a lot of energy that you're interacting with when you travel, airports, different people, all the stuff. And it can seem like hocus pocus, especially if you're not into the mindfulness and into like how energy and energetic fields impact you. But it has made such an amazing difference in how I operate, how I approach my business, how I approach other people, and made things so much easier. And I can absolutely tell when I fall off that wagon what happens, and everything gets more challenging. So that I encourage you to start looking into opportunities for self-care on a more consistent basis. There are some other things that I do too. Like, I have a monthly massage scheduled every month. It's something that also, when you talk about energy, that I feel like things get trapped in my muscles and in my fascia and all of that, that if I, like, even though it's pricey to do a massage once a month, that when I do that, things just open up and they flow easier physically, mentally, emotionally, business-wise, all of it. And it just makes such a huge difference. So having those things on the calendar, and for me also aesthetic sensibility of creating, like, having beautiful things, it's important for me to have my nails done and my hair done so that I feel confident in the way that I look. Now, that's not for everybody. Everybody's set up differently, but I just wanted to share some of that with you so that maybe you'd find it helpful and interesting. And I will link all the things that I talked about, those resources. I actually made a page on my Amazon storefront so you can see those things. There's even, I found that because I order so much salt, I needed somewhere to store it, and that this like rice container is a really good storage thing because it has a little scoop and all that. I linked all that on there for you. But I'd love to hear what you do for self-care. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment on YouTube. Let me know what your favorite self-care things are to do. If you are listening to this on your podcast app, pop over to Instagram and tag us or shoot me a DM. I would love to hear. I always am so interested in this kind of stuff. And this is when I've talked recently about creating more of a community. I want to be more vocal about these things. These are things that I haven't really freely talked about with my other business friends, with my friends that aren't business friends, people that I work with, all of that. And it really is such an integral part into what I do and how I live my life. And I want to share it with more people. So let's talk about it. I hope you liked it. All right. Next time, I'll see you on the next episode, and we'll probably talk some more about this. And yeah, let me know what you want to hear.